Good morning and welcome to another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. I've been told to turn up the volume on the mic just to make sure that everybody is hearing me loud and clear, and I hope that this is sufficient because I don't want to go to Spinal Tap 11 just to have my voice heard. What's happening out there? This is your 30-minute get-together, your morning cup of coffee, your morning cup of In Your Face with me, Robert Phoenix, and it's another day in the United States of America where Donald Trump seems to be on the ropes every single day, but I've been noticing that the momentum of the left is slowing down just a tad. We haven't had any great marches lately. The violence between Antifa and the Trump supporters seems to have abated for a bit. Are they gearing up for the American spring now that we are clearly in spring, the new year, the new astrological year? Is that going to occur? Is that going to happen? We're not sure. I think it might. But the longer this goes on, and the longer that Trump stays in, the less momentum the left and the progressives will have. Because anger will only carry you for so long. And once the anger is expelled, then the energy dissipates. I'll give you an example. If you've ever been in a fight and you're really angry, it lasts for about maybe the first 30 seconds of the fight. And that's when most fights should be won anyway, the first 30 seconds. If you're fighting past 30 seconds, I mean, if you're fighting in general, it's probably not great. But after 30 seconds, you're into a long, prolonged kind of, punch fest. That's not fun. But after 30 seconds, that anger goes away, it dissipates, and you're kind of now in this more lucid, adrenalized, yet not completely pissed off and violent state of mind. If we look back on what happened with the election, now we're, started in November, so that's Scorpio. By the time we get into Taurus, and we're talking, roughly May 20th, that's 6 months ago. That's half a year ago that the election occurred. Think about that. Half a year ago. We're coming up on half a year. Half a year where anger, do you think people have allowed anger to fester inside their cells for 6 months? If you can't get the anger out, then it becomes suppressed and it turns into feelings like desperation and demoralization. This is what happens. It's a normal function of the human body, psyche, emotions. So the longer Trump stays in office, the longer the less anger is there for the populace to tap into. It'll be interesting to see what happens. They're going to have to whip up the masses, get them going again. Now, because we don't have Barack Obama in the White House, again, I've stated this before, we have not had a major event where there was, quote unquote, white on black violence. No big events with the police. It could happen, but we haven't had one. Isn't that a coincidence? Isn't that an amazing coincidence? Barack Obama set this country back so far with race relations. It's not even funny. I have a lot of anger. Speaking of anger, I have anger towards it. Because pre-Obama, for the most part, man, people were getting along okay. I think we all kind of agreed that we didn't like Bush. Whether you were black or white, you kind of agreed you didn't like Bush. We could all high five over that. And Obama comes in and he just starts cleaving away at the relationship. Until by the end of his presidency, I mean, it's like, oh my God, these people hate me. Or if they didn't hate me, they don't really hate. I'm saying me as a symbol, as an overarching symbol. But me as a person, they didn't hate, but they probably also did not. It was like, oh yeah, okay, there's that guy. He's okay. I guess he's okay. I guess he's all right. But let's talk about how bad things are, how fucked up things are. And for that, I'm not happy. And for that reason alone, I'm glad he's gone. Now, Trump has brought his own style of polarization, although the funny thing about Trump is that his polarization is symbolic. It is not real. He's not come out and said anything untowards anybody in the African American community. No one. No one. And yet he is consistently fingered as a racist. Now, Trump may be many things, but racist is not one of them. I always point out, show me where he's racist. Show me where he's uttered vile and contemptible words towards another person. Tom Arnold claimed that he had Trump on tape with saying the vile N-word. Never happened, never surfaced, not there. A lot of Sturm and Drang, if you ask me. Now, on the other hand, Trump has some really not great things happen in the Middle East. The escalation in Syria is on. You know, the whole thing with Syria is they didn't ask us to be there. They didn't ask us to get rid of ISIS. They didn't invite us. We're just coming over. Don't worry about it. We're going to help. It's a bunch of horse shit. We created ISIS, and we're there to enable ISIS because the target goal is Syria and Iran. Flip those for our favorite nation state over there in the Middle East. Some interesting things happened. Of course, David Rockefeller, we talked about this yesterday, passed away. Now, the roots of the Rockefeller family are a trip. If you go all the way back past his father, who was John D Rockefeller, and his father's father, who is John Rockefeller. His father's father is William Avery Rockefeller, and the guy was a total con artist. I mean, if you look into his life, I mean, he was a trip. He was a total trip. He was a Scorpio. He was born November 13th. And he went from town to town selling, potions and all kinds of things that will make people feel better, get better, think better. He was a snake oil salesman, showed up at what would be Rockefeller's, eventually his mother, showed up at her house, and he had a sign on his belly that said he was deaf, and he wasn't deaf at all. And he was all kind of made up like this traveling salesman, kind of clownish, charismatic figure. And she said, "Oh, I would marry you if you weren't deaf." Now, this is a woman who assiduously practiced a real sense of piety. She didn't even smile. That's how religious and serious she was. She didn't smile. So she winds up marrying this William Rockefeller because this is what Rockefeller said, that she got $500 from her father to marry her. She's not very attractive. The father's like, "Please, please, please marry my daughter. Nobody's going to take her." You look at her, she looks like a man. So the older Rockefeller, he would take off and just go wherever he wanted. Go wherever he wanted. He was a tumble and tumbleweed. Of course, he'd go out on the road and sell stuff and have all kinds of crazy, wild, scorpionic sex. He eventually fathered a couple of kids with one of the nannies or housekeepers. He made a lot of money, this guy. And, of course, they were both girls. And eventually he wound up taking on a different name, an alias. And he went to Canada under the alias. And he started a new life with a new wife. But this is after he was accused of attempted rape by another housekeeper. This is the roots of the Rockefeller family. Okay, this is the scion of the Rockefellers. Now I know there's bad apples in every family. It happens. On my father's side, some of the men, maybe a little Rockefeller-esque. So that's not to say that generations down the line can't transform and become aware and enlightened. But it's an interesting start to a dynasty. Absolutely interesting. And then young Rockefeller, his dad basically said, I've tried to cheat my kids so that they can become sharp. He loaned them money. He loaned his kids money with interest. And then he would call the loans. Gee, I wonder where Rockefeller learned how to call loans. If you look at what happened during the Great Depression, that's exactly what happened. They called the loans in. Young Rockefeller was well versed in that because his father did it to him all the time. Of course, he'd scramble and he would make it count, make it work. By the time John D. Rockefeller was a young man, at the age of 25, he was a millionaire. He invested in oil in a very big way, and not just the drilling of oil, but the refinery of oil. He refined oil, made a killing off of kerosene, which was called the cheap light. Kerosene was the cheap light, and it lit America up. This is, pre-electricity. And then he wound up creating a monopoly on the distribution of oil. He cut a deal with the railroads and basically paid the railroads to jack up the fees of his competitors and kept his fees slightly below the competitors. So that he was making money and he was forcing his competitors out of business, and he'd buy them up. And one after one after one, he would snatch them up. And that's how Standard Oil of New York became a monopoly. And then eventually it was broken up. And when it was broken up into, all the various oils, Standard Oil of New York, Richfield, all these other, baby Sonys. And Rockefeller made money off of that too. He made tons of money off of that. So that was the roots of David Rockefeller, going all the way back a few generations. Just wanted to finish that up from yesterday. So the flat Earth is something that I have stayed away from because some of it is just completely bizarre, and some of it is really interesting. Now, there's a new theory that it is not flat Earth, but oblong Earth. So we've gone from dome Earth to flat Earth to oblong Earth. But what I'm finding fascinating now is that there are people in the public sphere that are talking about flat Earth as a reality, and it's happening in basketball. And the first guy that talked about this was Kyrie Irving, who plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he's a really high-profile player. I mean, this is not some guy sitting at the end of the bench. He's LeBron James's right-hand man on the Cleveland Cavaliers, who won the championship in the NBA last season, due in large part to Kyrie Irving's participation. And he is a vehement flat earther. So yesterday, Shaquille O'Neal comes out and he says the earth is flat. I'll read this to you. Retired American basketball superstar Shaquille O'Neal revealed his belief about the shape of the planet Earth speaking during a show on an internet radio station. It's true, the earth is flat. Let me see if I can do Shaq. It's true, the earth is flat. The earth is flat, yes it is. Shaq, he's easy. He said, speaking at Podbay.fm show, the 45-year-old has referred to his traveling experience when explaining belief. I drive from